All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I remember very vividly watching Paul Pierce play basketball for the Kansas Jayhawks back in the mid to late 90s, and he was a great college basketball player. Eventually, he was drafted in 1998 by the Boston Celtics, and he was paired with Antoine Walker. And the expectation was that that tandem was going to assist that franchise in reclaiming the glory that they had not seen since Bird, McHale, and Parrish had left the squad in the early 90s. I'll also never forget in the year 2000 when the Celtics went into LA, Paul Pierce lit them up for about 46 points, and after the game, Shaquille O'Neal gave Paul Pierce the nickname that he would carry for the remainder of his career, that being the truth. Paul Pierce was known for having a big mouth, being a huge trash talker, and being able to inflame the opposition. He was one of Michael Jordan's main antagonists when he came back to play in 2001. As a matter of fact, I remember right before Michael Jordan came back, Paul Pierce was on the TNT panel, and he said he couldn't wait for Jordan to come back because he was going to light him up, blah, blah, blah. And he and Jordan had some great battles. Of course, old man Jordan, but they still had some very entertaining battles for those 2 years that Michael Jordan was back in the NBA. We also know that Paul Pierce was known for getting stabbed up outside of a club in Boston for running his mouth. My point is this: the truth has always had a penchant for allowing his mouth to write checks for him that his ass could not cash. And that brings us to today. After an almost 20-year NBA career, Paul Pierce is still known for making inflammatory statements as an NBA pundit. The latest inflammatory statement being his assertion that he had a greater career and that he's a greater player than Dwyane Wade was. The only thing that surprises me, and we know that Paul did not quite have the career that Dwyane Wade has had, but what has surprised me is the virulence with which so many other members of the media and the fans have attacked Paul Pierce, like he just has no right to claim that he's better than Dwyane Wade, like he's nowhere near. He's not even in Dwyane Wade's ballpark. I saw that damn Toucan Sam face looking ass dude, Nick Wright, on Fox Sports 1 saying that. Oh, you know, how are you going to say that about Dwyane Wade? You're not even close to Dwyane Wade, Paul Pierce. Like, Paul Pierce is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He should have been a two-time world champion. He beat Kobe Bryant in 2008 and won the NBA Finals MVP. He has room to speak. Yes, Dwyane Wade had a phenomenal NBA career. He was a one-time NBA Finals MVP. He never won a regular season MVP, but neither did Paul Pierce. But a lot of the comparisons that people are making when it comes to accolades, you also have to understand and place in proper context that Dwyane Wade, even though he was an all-time great shooting guard, the 2000s was a very weak era for shooting guards. Outside of Kobe Bryant, Dwyane Wade, and Ray Allen, there were not any really good shooting guards in the NBA. At the small forward position, you had LeBron James, you had Vince Carter, you had Tracy McGrady, you had Carmelo Anthony. And that's before you even get to Paul Pierce. I'm not saying that Paul Pierce was not as good as those other players. I'm just trying to illustrate the depth at the small forward position in the early 2000s. By the late 2000s, Paul was in his early 30s and he needed help. And he got that help in the form of Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen. And when those players came together, they delivered on that championship in their first year. The second year, unfortunately for them, Kevin Garnett got hurt. In the third year, they should have beat the Lakers in the finals, but unfortunately for them, they ran out of gas in Game 6 and 7, and Ron Artest saved Kobe's ass. So anyway, just getting back to the point, the truth decided that he was going to declare that he was a greater player or that he's had a greater career than Dwyane Wade. They're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Tony, thank you. Dwyane Wade and the Heat haven't been eliminated from the playoffs, but it's looking more like Wade's career will come to an end this week. This is what Paul Pierce had to say about Wade on Friday night. Take a listen.
That's easy. I can say that off the bat. That's me. If you give me Shaq, if you give me LeBron, he did. On the big three. Yeah, we got that late, but like early in my
Paul Pierce makes some very captivating points.
My career.
I mean, what are you doing right now?
If you give me these guys early in my career.
Well, let me ask you this. What would have been a perfect time for you, Paul? Let's make sure we get this right.
I was 24 years old.
Okay.
You give me Shaq. When I'm 24, 25, you give me LeBron and Bosh. I'll be sitting on 5 or 6 championships. Easy.
And Paul Pierce is saying what he's supposed to say because he was a great player his damn self. He's not supposed to sit on TV and say that Dwyane Wade was better than him. Dwyane Wade is higher on the all-time shooting guard list than Paul Pierce is on the all-time small forward list. but that does not make Dwyane Wade that discernibly a greater player than Paul Pierce. They were both great players in the same era. Would I take Dwyane Wade over Paul Pierce? Well, maybe, but it depends on who else I have on that team. But they are on the same level. I would just put Dwyane Wade slightly higher on that level than I would Paul Pierce.
I was watching this live. That Truth Serum segment, really good. That was all Paul Pierce on NBA Countdown comparing his career to Dwyane Wade's. Max, does Pierce have a case on his career being better than Wade's?
He definitely has a case. It's just not, he's not going to win, but he has a case. He has the right to argue it. In the same way that, say, for example, if you're Alex English and you want to argue that you're greater than Bernard King or you're greater than Carmelo Anthony, you can do so. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, I could see if Paul Pierce had never won a championship, then he would not even have a case. But he won a championship and he was the finals MVP. Dwyane Wade was the second banana on the Miami Heat's 2 other championships. And the one chip that he did win, the referees basically gave him every call that you could possibly give a player.
He has standing to bring a case. Let's put it that way. He's a Hall of Famer, 4-time All-NBA. Not the best. It doesn't rank among the forwards the small forwards the way Wade ranks among the shooting guards. Partly that's because it feels like in the upper echelon there are more forwards that.
Absolutely. I mean, if we just look at the 1980s, there were so many great small forwards. Larry Bird, Dominique Wilkins, Alex English, Bernard King, Mark Aguirre, Adrian Dantley, so on and so. That's just in the 1980s. I mean, in the 70s, you had guys like Rick Barry, John Havlicek. I mean, you also had in the 70s and 80s Dr. J. That's before you even get to the 90s with players like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Carmelo Anthony. So Paul Pierce is somewhere in there. It's just that there have always been more great small forwards than shooting guards. At the shooting guard position, you have Michael Jordan, you have Kobe Bryant, you have Dwyane Wade, you have Clyde Drexler, you have Jerry West. I made a video about this a while ago where I asked the hypothetical question, is Dwyane Wade better than Kobe Bryant? The answer to that is no. But as I stated in the video, Dwyane Wade is closer to Kobe than Kobe is to Michael Jordan. And a lot of Kobe fans don't understand that. They thought I was saying that Dwyane Wade is better than Kobe. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that Dwyane Wade is closer to Kobe. If you have both players fully healthy in their prime, Dwyane Wade is right there with Kobe. I would not necessarily take him over Kobe, but they're close. Neither one of those players are close to Michael Jordan, especially when it comes to proficiency. Neither one of those guys are close.
Than guards when you think about it, but debatable. The point is he has standing to bring a case, and he won a championship, by the way, as an older player. And his game actually translates to this modern NBA probably a little better than Wade's does.
I agree with that. I agree that Paul Pierce's game would probably translate better to today's style of play. If we're talking about a prime Paul Pierce, he was great from long range, he was great from mid-range, and he could take it to the cup, draw fouls, and make his free throws. Dwyane Wade has never been a great long-range shooter, but he's so wily, and his basketball IQ is so high, that even as a player today who's clearly past his prime, he can still have a thorough impact on the outcome of the game.
Because he could shoot it better than Wade, and he had size. Now, the thing that really bothers me, though, Stephen A., is how seriously everyone's taking this.
I agree. I was a bit taken aback by that as well. I mean, the way that people are responding, it's like Paul Pierce is a complete bum. And I have to wonder why that is. I suspect that part of it is that Dwyane Wade was so exciting to watch. I mean, if you watch those 2005 and 2006 playoffs, there was a bit of a Jordan-esque aspect to how Dwyane Wade played. So I could kind of see why people have more of an emotional attachment to Dwyane Wade than Paul Pierce. But Paul Pierce was a great player as well.
Paul Pierce really believes he's like the best player ever, which he wasn't, right? But he was a...
Well, I think that Paul would say that Michael Jordan was better than him, and probably LeBron was better than him, but that's about it.
He was a legitimately great player.
Also, let's remember, Paul Pierce outplayed LeBron James in their Game 7 in 2008. Paul Pierce had 41, LeBron had 45, but Paul made all the big shots down the stretch of that game.
All of a sudden, Paul Pierce is not allowed to say something that may make some sense. Look, when LeBron got together with Wade and Bosh, not 2, not 3, not 4, no, it was 2. It was 2. You could say that group, as incredible as they were, 4 straight finals, 2 wins in the finals, 2 championships, underachieved. And partly...
They did underachieve, and that's because of LeBron's performance in 2011.
Partly that was because when they got together, LeBron and Wade were two of the top 3 or 4 players in the world, along with Kobe and Duncan.
I'm not quite sure if D. Wade was one of the top 3 players in the world at that time. I mean, we'd have to sit down and think about that. But in 2011, you have KD kind of on the outside looking in, but pushing to be considered in the top 3 or top 5. Of course, you had LeBron, you had Kobe Bean, you had Dirk Nowitzki, quiet as kept. Dwyane is somewhere in there, though. Dwyane is probably top 5 at that time period.
But that's not the way it fit together. Paul Pierce has a good point. He may have fit together with LeBron, his game, because he could shoot, because he had size, better than Wade, who seemed...
Well, Paul Pierce would have had to play the 2, and I'm not quite sure if he would have been able to guard 2s.
Seemed to be some lesser version of himself when LeBron was there. Let's not forget, when Wade was in the finals against Dallas, he had the best final series since Michael Jordan was in the finals, right?
Well, it was certainly up there. I would say if we're just talking about impact, Shaq's finals performances in 2000, 2001, 2002 were right there with some of Jordan's in the early 90s. You also had Akeem in 1995. I mean, you've had some great finals performances over the years.
But that was not the same guy when LeBron showed up. And part of that had to do with Wade's age, and part of it had to do with the way their games meshed.
Well, it mostly had to do with attrition. D. Wade had thrown his body all across the floor for his first 5 or 6 years in the NBA, and it started to show.
So when Paul Pierce says, yo, give me all the guys Wade played with when I was still at or near my prime and I'd have at least as many championships, I think he has a real case.
He has the right to speak, that's for sure.
Well, you would think that because you rarely listen to the actual question and comment. So let me remind...
Isn't that what he's supposed to do?
Me remind you of what he was trying to say, because he went on Twitter and he elaborated extensively. He didn't talk about, oh, I'm a better player, or I was a better off guard, my talent, etc. Because
why would he say that? He didn't even play off guard. He played small forward.
Because Paul Pierce had times in his career. He's averaged 25, 26, 25 for 3 straight years. I mean, he was doing his thing. So nobody's going to disrespect Paul Pierce and say the brother couldn't play. He's not a legitimate Hall of Famer. He's not a champion. He wasn't a closer. He wasn't the truth. Where he incriminated himself is when he said he had a better career than Dwyane Wade. Dwyane Wade has 3 titles. You had 1. About 7 or 8 years out of 10, Dwyane Wade was in the conversation as one of the top 5, top 10 players in the NBA. That was not Paul Pierce, not over that period of time. In terms of all level, in terms of all world, all right, you got NBA seasons, 19 for Paul, 16 for Dwyane Wade. Playoffs, 14 to 13. All-star games, 10 to 13. MVPs, they both had 1 in the finals. All-NBA first team. Paul Pierce never made an All-NBA first team.
How is Paul Pierce going to make an All-NBA first team when he's playing in the same era as LeBron James? He's playing in the same era as T-Mac. He's playing in the same era as Vince Carter. He's playing in the same era as Carmelo Anthony. He's not going to make All-NBA first team. So at that position, there was far more depth. Once again, D-Wade's competition for All-NBA was Ray Allen and Kobe.
Dwyane Wade was on it twice.
That dunk right there was one of the great in-game dunks that I can remember. He drove the length of the court and just yoked it on Verajao, and he was head high to the rim. I'm trying to remember if Michael Jordan was at that game or not.
All NBA teams. Paul Pierce made it 4 times. Dwyane Wade made it 8 times. All defensive team. Paul Pierce never made it. Dwyane Wade made it 3 times. And
D-Wade was a great defender.
And so when you look at that and you look at the number of championships, Dwyane Wade was a superstar. I remember Paul Pierce being a person who could flat out ball and was damn near tears because he couldn't get help because Danny Ainge was wetting the bed as an executive at that particular moment in time. Where things took off for Danny Ainge was when Kevin McHale, his buddy from their days together as teammates with the Boston Celtics, gave him a Christmas gift.
Yeah, Kevin McHale gave him that stimulus package. That was funny.
Of Kevin Garnett after you had acquired Ray Allen as well. So the combination of Ray Allen and KG.
But that's ultimately, his point,
wait a minute. Ultimately, that is what happened. But in the end, when you're talking about a career, again, if you talk about individual talent and them balling, even though most of us would take Wade, we're not going to disrespect
Well, that's kind of what you're doing, Stephen A. Smith.
And act like he wasn't a champion and he couldn't ball and he couldn't close. But when you bring up the conversation of career, his career doesn't mess with Dwyane Wade.
No, that's the point.
It's not that it doesn't mess with it. It's just, D-Wade had the better career. But when you say it doesn't mess with it, now you're talking about a huge disparity. There's not a huge disparity between Paul Pierce and D-Wade.
It messes with it. It just loses. But
Agreed.
Like, I agree. There's no disagreement that Wade had the superior career and was the better player, by the way. But it's not like Paul Pierce doesn't have an argument to be made. He just loses the argument. The man has standing. He's a Hall of Fame.
He loses the argument, obviously.
Wait, hold on.
Not quite. Not quite obviously. There has to be some context there. Once again, Paul Pierce did not have the leeway to have his best friend be LeBron James, the best player in the NBA or the burgeoning best player in the NBA, and have him come team up. I mean, what if Danny Ainge was not friends with Kevin McHale? Paul Pierce's career changes dramatically.
He's a Hall of Fame player who's saying the point you just made was his point. He didn't have any help. He didn't play with anyone until they put the big three together, essentially at the end of his career. And what he's saying when you say 3 championships to 1 championship, he's like, give me Shaq when Shaq was still that good. Give me LeBron and Bosh when I'm still young and good, and I have more championships.
You don't seem to understand that, Stephen A. Smith.
So we don't understand that he's saying that. We all just clueless. We can't understand English. We don't comprehend that Paul Pierce is saying that.
Calm down, Stephen A. Your turkey neck is shaking.
But I'm just saying the point is this is what
Gobble, gobble.
His career doesn't compare. His career doesn't compare.
Hold on, he played 19 seasons. Was a 4-time All-NBA player and won a championship when he was an old guy, and was a Finals MVP. And his game translates to this era probably better. Like, if he was playing in this era, he'd probably be remembered as a better player even than he was in that.
I agree with that. Paul Pierce played in the most defensive era in the modern history of the NBA. Maybe in the history of the NBA period. I mean, I'm not going to go back to the George Mikan days, but if we're talking about the modern history of the NBA, the early 2000s is the most defensive era in the history of the league.
I'm not talking.
The thing that I'm reacting to more than anything is people are acting like Paul Pierce attacked the man personally.
Agreed.
They're not acting. That's nonsense. They're not acting like he attacked.
That's not nonsense. It's very obvious. And Max Kellerman is going to state this point blank, but he's referring to Gabrielle Union, the silly wife of Dwyane Wade, the pansexual wife of Dwyane Wade, who decided that she was going to play the quote-unquote wokety-woke, pro-black, internet revolutionary angle due to Paul Pierce's comments, and claimed that he was trying to quote-unquote tear another black man down. All the same bullshit that the liberal black woman resorts to, her racialist alter ego, whenever she wants to try to shame somebody into not addressing certain sentiments. And it was not that big a deal. But once again, Gabrielle Union tried to go woke and tried to go racialist on Paul Pierce just because Paul Pierce said he had a better career than D-Wade. I mean, give me a break.
They're not acting like that. No, what they're saying is he's flagrantly wrong. Don't turn this into something that it's not. They're not attacking Dwyane. He's not attacking Dwyane Wade personally. That's not what he's saying.
But I have seen responses to Paul Pierce by people
From
who may have an
Twitter
interest
trolls?
in it. Gabrielle Union.
Oh.
What?
Right.
What? Oh, the wife
Gabby
came
got
to the
in on
defense
it.
of her husband.
No, but it wasn't in defense of her husband in terms of the merits of the case, which she would win. It was like as though Paul Pierce attacked him personally, which he didn't.
Because that was a knee-jerk response to Paul Pierce to try to shame him. That's all that was, Max Kellerman. Gabrielle Union knew none of the facts. She knew none of the facts that would have bolstered the argument of her quote-unquote husband. Had she known those facts, she probably would not have tried to go woke on Paul Pierce. But because the facts didn't matter, she decided that she was going to try to pull the racialist card of, you're a black man trying to tear another black man down. All this nonsense and this madness. Some chick who does not even have the courage to carry the child that she claims is the combination of Dwyane Wade's sperm and her egg. Allegedly it is.
So what you gonna say? What you gonna say next? Dwyane Wade's son attacked him too because he said my dad had a better career than you.
Depends on which son you're talking about. If it's the middle son, I doubt if he's attacking anything other than a Barbie doll.
That's an attack. It's when you you say, how dare you do this, it's wrong because, and you bring up other stuff that Paul Pierce isn't talking about.
What other stuff, Max Kellerman? Just speak plainly. You know that you are a Marxist Caucasian man anyway. You have the right to speak about race. Most of the liberal Negroes will allow you to speak about race.
If you ask Paul Pierce who's better, him or Michael Jordan, he's going to say him. He thinks he's the best.
I kind of love that about him.
Yes.
Even if it's slightly delusional, it's kind of amazing.
Yes,
too.
it is kind of amazing.
I'm going 70-30 Wade to Paul.
I'm
Both
annoyed
are
by
Hall
the
of Famers.
subject. Paul Pierce is a Hall of Famer, but I'm annoyed by the subject. I'm not talking about it.
I would go probably about 60-40 D-Wade to Paul Pierce.
All right. Stephen A's annoyed. Let's let him get a break in.
Yeah, he's on his menstrual. But anyway, peace.